Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's licensing subcommittee meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on Council's YouTube channel. My name is Councillor Mercy Ume, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. If I lose connection and cannot reconnect, Councillor Paul Alexander will take over for me. I would like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you are speaking at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add any additional information other than at the allocated time to speak, they must use the raise the hand function so that they are not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief to the point. I now move on to item 1 on our agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. None have been received. Item 2, declaration of interest. Do members have any declaration of interest?
No, Chair.
No. Okay. Now I go to item 3. Rena Valley, 98A North End Road. I would like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourself as I call on you. We should have with us Mr. Ahmed Rena, the applicant. Ahmed?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm you.
Okay, thank you.
There's my daughter with me also joined.
Pleased to meet her. Pleased to welcome you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the second one.
Thank you. Pleased to meet you again. Adrian, licensing compliance officer, enforcement. Adrian.
Present. Thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Okay. We have noise and nuisance officer here, Rowan James. Are you here?
Present, Chair. Hello.
Okay, hello. We have our legal officer, Gerta. She's here, yes. We have objectors. We have
it's here. Sorry, Chair. I'm present.
Okay.
Apologies.
Thank you. We have our objectors, and we have VJ, local resident. Can see you are there. And we have Charlotte Dexter Maury.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to the procedure. Before we begin, I can confirm that in addition to the main agenda, a supplementary agenda containing additional information from one of the objectors was also published and circulated to all parties on the 7th of November, 2002. We will hear the presentation from the following. The licensing officer will introduce the application. The two objectors who have registered to speak, finally the applicant. Usually, each party will address the committee once for a maximum of 5 minutes. Following the presentation of all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or other person present at the hearing. No party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during hearing. Following the questioning, each party will be allowed 3 minutes to sum up. The committee will then retire for deliberation. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. Please keep your remarks as concise as possible. Presentation. Now I ask the licensing officer, Adrian, to introduce the application.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, panel. So just by way of background, I can confirm that on the 12th of July 2022, Mr. Rian submitted an application for a new premises licence in respect of the business known as Rian Valley 98A North End Road W149EX. The application sought to allow the provision of late night refreshment Monday to Sunday from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m, both indoors and outdoors. The opening hours requested were also Monday to Sunday, but 11 a.m. rather than 11 p.m. Until 2 a.m. During the consultation period, the applicant has agreed to add some extra conditions to their licence as proposed by the police licensing team. These conditions concern the specification of any CCTV system used on the premises, but also outline the following. The supply of late night refreshment after 11 p.m. shall be by delivery or takeaway service only. All deliveries shall be made to bona fide business and residential addresses only. And finally, signs shall be displayed informing customers that the provision of late night refreshment shall be provided by delivery or takeaway service only after 11 p.m. The licensing team also received one representation from the council's noise and nuisance team and 3 representations from local residents. As I understand it, no agreement has been reached with these parties at this stage. We would like to draw the committee's attention to the enforcement history set out in section 4.1 of the report. As you will see, it outlines 2 failed test purchases which took place at the premises in July and in September this year. If you could also please note that there has been a supplementary agenda issued by the licensing authority which outlines some additional comments and suggested conditions which have been provided by Ms. Dexter, who has already submitted a valid representation during the consultation period. I don't have any other comments at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Adrian. Can I have James, the noise and nuisance officer, to present his own case?
Hello, Chair. You'll have to forgive me. My camera isn't working on this laptop. So can you hear me? Can I just check that?
We can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So essentially, just to cover this application in terms of how it's been viewed from a noise and nuisance perspective, we reviewed the application with regards to the context and the times requested, and in doing so consider the location. In doing so can also consider the opening times of other premises of a similar nature along North End Road. With careful consideration of the aforementioned context, it was considered by the noise and nuisance department or noise and nuisance team that allowing the premises to open until 2 a.m. would potentially lead to a significant increase in noise and late night antisocial behaviour in what is essentially a mixed commercial and residential area. And that's the key here. Obviously, at different times of the day, it kind of ebbs and flows between being quite residential locations and more of a commercial one. Our concern, one of our key concerns, being obviously at night time, if that kind of commercial element results in additional antisocial behaviour and noise into the early hours, the greater the impact then on the residential aspects, residential elements of that location. Having said that, it's not necessarily unreasonable to look for a premises of this nature to open slightly later, albeit we feel that a jump from kind of 11 till 2 a.m. is quite substantial. But to kind of move on from that, we would then look at, if there is an application comes in for these kind of hours, we would then look in detail at the operating schedule. The operating schedule then gives us a pretty good idea as to what the understanding is of the applicant with regards to the noise and nuisance issues and how they feel they're best addressed. We may feel that we still don't keen on the application until 2 a.m, but obviously, as I say, we would review the operating schedule in great detail just to get an understanding of their approach. And unfortunately, that's one of the key areas where this application is let down, because in the section on prevention of public nuisance, the only thing that's been included in there was to keep noise levels down, which obviously, from our point of view, doesn't have any kind of tangible value. It doesn't really tell us anything in terms of what's being proposed and how that could happen. which obviously is generally that, but we really consider that to be insufficient because it demonstrates a distinct lack of appreciation of the noise and nuisance issues associated with the operation of a late night venue such as this. Sometimes on the basis of if we get conditions but we don't feel they're very robust, we may negotiate or suggest conditions to an applicant. But when we've got a situation like this, when the only information they've put forward is to try and keep noise levels down, we just feel they need to perhaps go away and have a bit of a think about how that's actually going to work in practice, rather than maybe us just putting forward some conditions which they would agree with. They get the application through the door. We would then obviously have concerns that some of those conditions that they're going to struggle to manage them or have them at the forefront of their thinking. So that's the kind of key issues that we had and why we recommended refusal for the times that were stated. However, in addition to that, as Adrian pointed out, there were 2 test purchase failures, which obviously bring into focus this kind of lack of thought and consideration as to if we were to put conditions down that they would even be adhered to in the first place. So just to kind of clarify on those, there was one in July and there was one in September. The one in July, or rather the one in September, there was a chicken shawarma which was purchased at about 11:10, and at the same time the officers made some detailed notes, the fact there were still a number of people still in the shop after they had left. Now that's 11:10. There could be a discrepancy in somebody's watch for 11:10, but the second test purchase we did was by myself, and I purchased some chips at 20:12. Which obviously is significant after 11 o'clock, and there were also other people in there at that time. So on that basis, that's why we put forward the representation and felt that just conditions until 2 a.m. Without some greater thought from the applicant wouldn't be sufficient in this case. And that's essentially our position. Thank you.
I think the chair may have been cut off from the meeting, Councillor.
It would appear so. And can we then proceed with the yeah, somebody just sent me a text message. I beg your pardon for the delay in this. So we've heard from the council's licensing officer. We've heard from the council's noise team. If we can now hear from, is it Mr. Vitali and Ms. Dexter, who are both objectors, who are going to speak. Mr. Vitali, would you like to go first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Vitaly. I'm a resident at 2 Beaumont Crescent. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well, thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, so I'm a resident at 2 Beaumont Crescent, which is a little street right opposite the business. And I strongly object their proposal to extend the working hours. And I have a few reasons. Reason number one, the area is already very noisy. During the day, when there is a heavy traffic, you cannot really hear noise as much coming from the businesses. But when the traffic quietens, then every business operating outside in the street and having people coming in and out is actually, you can hear it really well. My bedroom is approximately 30 meters away from the business, which means I can actually hear people outside the business. It's just too close. The only time now in summer when you want to open and get some fresh air is a late evening or very late evening when the business is closed and it's a bit quieter. Having business operating till 2 a.m. will make it impossible to have windows open late in the evening. That's number one. Number two, we already have a lot of delivery drivers, like Deliveroo and other ones, parking right outside our home. This is a street where they can actually park to get their food picked up. Just yesterday, I had a free motorcycles parked right outside my bedroom, and they were waiting for food to be ready. Very often they are speaking on their phones. They might be eating. Very often, I don't want to offend anyone, they drop the food on the ground and they leave it there. It causes additional littering. So it's just yesterday, there were 3 of them parked outside my bedroom window. Having business operating for takeaways means there will be more drivers parked outside. It's already been mentioned about the antisocial behavior of the customers. Point number 3, it will set a wrong precedent for other businesses to start applying for same kind of licenses to extend the working hours. And I want to just remind that people's bedrooms are very, very close, and it's very, very noisy already. It will become even noisier. And from my experience, addressing this after the business already operates is very difficult. It's very hard to prove additional noise. This is why I'm strongly against this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vitaly. I'll now move to Charlotte.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, thank you. I've set out my 6 points on agenda item 5, which is page 3 of the supplementary agenda. And I'll just go through them quickly. We support the environmental noise officer in his upholding the objection, and appreciate the comments that he made this evening to flesh that out. We feel that crime and disorder cannot be upheld because even the police themselves, in their notices and letters to the applicant, said that North End Road experiences high volumes of antisocial behavior, in particular groups outside of premises, and so on, which I've quoted in the middle of the page there. So the police are in I understand a difficult situation. On the one hand, they know all the problems. On the other hand, we're also trying to support businesses, but we have to find sort of a middle ground. My third point is one that was brought up at a hearing a few months ago, that North End Road is being invested in by the council, which residents greet very much, and thank the councillors here tonight who are part of that. Improvements for the market, improvements for the road, but it's all improvements about daytime, maybe a bit of early evening activity, and a lot of weekend market fun, the autumn fair and so on. So there's no plan. It was made clear that there's no plan for late night economy or early morning economy on North End Road. There's no plan to develop that out. So if there's no plan, then starting the plan in this way might be one that then sets these precedents again. Every application is considered on its own merits, but we quickly start looking at hours of places next door. I've been to the area. I mean, I live near the area, obviously. I live at the bottom of North End Road, and so do my neighbors. So I went up there a couple of times in the last few weeks before I took. I'm not in England right now, so that's not. And it's a very interesting little area when you curve around there after the little Waitrose and head towards West Kensington Station, because you start seeing all these nice little cafes and so on. And amazingly, they all close at 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30. They have little signs up on the doors. All of them make very clear what their closing times are. So I've pointed out that there are a couple tubes after midnight, but basically that whole area starts shutting down, or should be shutting down, around 11:30 or so. So we feel very strongly that if we start pushing those hours, if the council starts pushing those hours out, then we're going to start having more problems that are very difficult to contain. My final two quick points, sorry, I don't have a desk to work from here. Oh yes, okay, so I did want to make the point that perhaps if the committee does decide to extend the hours, something needs to be done regarding what the other resident just talked about. The owner, Mr. Ahmed, might start having real problems with people congregating and wanting to sit down, but he's not going to be able to allow them to sit down. And he has nice booths in there and so on. So he's agreed to only takeaway. But is he going to cordon off those booths, or is he going to get rid of them altogether? Which he probably won't, because he wants to use them during the day. And he might need some guidance there from people on what to do, because otherwise it's going to have people fighting or creating problems for him. He works on his own sometimes. Sometimes there's one other person, I noticed. So, it's a small shop. I don't know what help he might need there to make sure that crime and antisocial behavior, fights, brawls, the kind of things that the police are concerned about when hours get extended. So that was one thought that we had there. And finally, we feel that overall, again, North End Road is developing nicely again, and we just need to keep it a place where there's less crime and less disorder. And by lowering the hours or not extending the hours, we feel we'll be in a better position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dexter. I now ask the applicant, Ahmed Rian, to give a presentation, and I'll give him up to 10 minutes to do that, and I will give you a reminder as we get near the 10 minutes. If you'd like to go ahead.
Chair, just before he does that, if I can, your microphone is doing that voice thing again, just for when you come back and speak next.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I agree. In the beginning,
Sorry to interrupt you, and I'll give you a chance to start again, but I need to just hand over back to the chair, who's now rejoined the meeting, and I'll go on mute. Over to you, Mercy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paul Alexandra. I'm sorry I was off on the line. So where are we now? Is Mohammed going to do his presentation, or are we on?
yes.
Okay. Yes, Mohammed, please go on with your.
I agree with all what you just say. You hear me, yeah?
We can hear you.
All right. Regarding the business, I will follow what you want. I will shorten the area of the sitting area and the outside area. Also, it's gonna be closed. I'm gonna stop doing delivery after 10:30. No delivery. Anyway, I have very little delivery. And regarding the noisy, I was open until 2 o'clock, not because I'm selling till 2 o'clock, from like 12:30 is a stop in the business sale. Very, very few I sell, but because we keep the business open and we keep starting cleaning the business. And I've been open March, April, and maybe May. No complaint no noisy, no one come to me or one single call. They said there is noisy. Since the council complaining about my opening hour, is like I feel, you know, many of people they complain about my business, there is noisy. If there is any noise from my business or anything happen, please can you provide me with any evidence something happened or noisy from my business, or my business advertise for this noisy. We are in High Street. The High Street is a 24-hour. I stay in the business till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Before I tell you in March, even I was sitting even outside the business, no sale, just sitting, you know. It's keep noisy, even the car is gonna be more noisy than the before 12 o'clock PM or AM. It's gonna be like more noisy because the road is silent and the cars give more noisy. Motorbike or car, even I am inside my business, you know, I feel like noisy. But for my business, there is the car, you can't close the road completely to make my neighbor, for example, happy to have some fresh air, you understand? The life is need to continue. I know he want to have some fresh air, he have his right, but this is public road. You know, the UK doesn't sleep. We are in 2022. And my business, I'm not selling drugs or I'm not advertising for any crime. You know, I'm selling rub. That's all what I'm doing. You know, I have my right to leave, and also it's my responsibility to stop any crime or anything like happen in the area, because it's all my neighbor. If they are safe, I am safe. I'm trying to be as much I can, you know, with my neighbor, how I'm looking after my children, I'm looking after my neighbor, even the stuff upstairs. I tell them, my neighbor, never make them sad or anything. Give them even free, but don't make him angry or sad from the business. You know, 9 months now I am open. I have no single complaint, even like about my food or about the service, because I'm very, very strong with my staff for no one upset. Even if they have to give the food free, give it free, but don't make any of the stuff the customer upset. And I have zero with the technology. Regarding my delivery, it was still open. You know, I tried to close it, but you know, there's the application. I'm a new with delivery. I don't know how to do some change, but I don't do delivery after 11 o'clock. It's only one time happened. One time happened, we was closing the business and we received an order. I did complete this order because I don't know the council, they not allowed me even like if the customer stay after 11 o'clock, he's inside already from like before 11 o'clock, like I can't serve him. I wasn't aware about the law. I should like 11 o'clock, no customer inside. Now I'm writing sign in the front the door, but also I can't write sign for all the driver or the car to be quiet or to be silent, as I read in the letter they want from me to write in sign. But what about the other car? The cars keep moving. It's also make noisy. And the car stop doesn't make any noisy. Any car is moving, there is noisy. And also there is many businesses open in 24 hours. There is McDonald's, there is my neighbor open in 24 hours, is a supermarket. There is the cottage chicken, he have a license, he open in till 5 o'clock in the morning. Why he have his right and I don't have my right to have the license? And my license, I reduce it. I agreed to 12:30 or 1 o'clock, just in case, like till 1 o'clock. 12:30 is perfect for me. When the tube station is stopped, in that time, I'm happy to shut down my business. I need like asking like just one from 12:30, like 1 hour extra, and no delivery from 10:30. Because you know all what I'm working is was my local customer. That's all what I can do. Regarding to make window, my business, you can't do window because the customer, he want to see his food, what he want to do with his job. You understand? I can't make it like a window, like a pizza shop. There's McDonald's. I went to Earl's Court before yesterday. Is McDonald's is open? There is a queue. There is too much noisy, but he's still open. No one complain in Earl's Court. There is another premises supermarket. There is another in South Kensington is open in premises also. He have a sitting area in South Kensington. I don't know what to do. You know, I'm trying as much I can to not make any trouble for the area or my neighbor. If anything happen, if I get the license, if anything happen, I agree to take off the license and to close even 9 o'clock, not 11 o'clock. Because my low income, I stay. You know, if I didn't stay from March till like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, there is also for university, they have like a party. Suddenly I have very busy, like till maybe 12:30, I keep serving. I don't know, this has happened maybe yearly one time. All what I need till 12:30 is fantastic for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Reina. Now, questions for committee. Can I ask committee members if they have any question to any of the parties? Okay. Yes, okay. Councillor Dominic.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody for all the information and the speeches you've already given to us. I may have some more questions later, Chair, but for now I've got two specific questions. The first of these is to Adrian Overton of licensing. Adrian, could you please just explain to the committee what a sorry, I just want to get the right wording. The letters that were sent in July and September, what the contents of the letters actually were. In other words, what did they ask or tell the applicant to do, and what sort of follow-up would there be from those? And would you have expected a response, and indeed did you receive one?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so the letters basically outlined that there was an offence, that the premises wasn't licensed for late night refreshment. So that's the sale of hot food and drinks after 11 o'clock in the evening. And the letters explained that a test purchase had taken place and found that the premises was providing food after 11 o'clock without a licence. And it then explained that that this was an offence under the Licensing Act 2003, and that they should cease that activity as soon as possible, and that this was a warning on this occasion, but it may be that we would escalate the matter in future if further offences were found. And then obviously there was another incident in September that Mr. Rawlinson outlined, when the premises was again found to be trading, and a very similar letter was sent, again warning the premises and explaining that they didn't have a licence and that they should stop that activity as soon as possible, and that in future a prosecution could be looked into as you know, as potential enforcement action going forward. And at this stage we haven't, there's no prosecution in the pipeline. They're dealt with as 2 warning letters, and that's how we've dealt with it at this stage.
Thank you, thank you. And there's no requirement for acknowledgement by the recipient in these letters?
As I understand, no, there's not. No, it was more for information. It was telling them that this offence had occurred and there were contact details in the letter if they needed clarification, on the contents of the letter and what was outlined.
Thank you. And they're just sent by Royal Mail or hand delivered or recorded delivery?
I would need to check on that. I don't know that for certain, but normally we send any warning letters recorded delivery, but I can't say for certain on this occasion without checking.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. If there's obviously kind of a time limit essentially on the previous activities, because we are having this hearing today. If this hearing was not taking place, what sort of follow-up would you have been doing? I mean, would you have scheduled another test purchase or?
Almost certainly, yes. Yeah. And yes, we would have done. Yeah, there would have been a third test purchase after that. And then I think if there was a further failed test purchase, then we would have been looking for other enforcement options.
Thank you very much. That's terrific.
No problem.
Thank you. Right. So to Mr. Ahmed, in light of what Mr. Overton has just said, you received the first letter in July.
Yeah.
And yet you continued making late night sales, certainly into September. One of which was by the noise and nuisance officer who is here tonight, who made a purchase at 10 minutes to midnight. I was just really wondering what your comments were on that.
I have misunderstood regarding the stop and sell at 11 o'clock. What I think, for example, I know this country, like I know Marcus Spencer, example, just I'm giving to you. Marcus Spencer, 9 o'clock is shut down or 9:30. But sometime when I am inside, he keeps serving me because I come in before that time. I was like, no, I can't do serving only if the customer come like before 11 o'clock. Like in 11 o'clock, you shut in, but you keep serving the customer in until you shut completely, you serve all the customer and you shut on your door. That's what I know. I don't know, like I was before 11, I have to close. Like no customer, or if any order, I can't complete it by 11 o'clock. The customer leaving before 11. I didn't know that. Even from the council, I spoke to them because I have misunderstood even regarding the opening about the servant. They explained to me, but they think like I'm born in this country, like, or I'm a smart person. I know everything. Like I don't have like a letter, specifically letter confirming, for example, no 11 o'clock, need the door shut, no one in, no one out. I understand, if I read, I understand this point. If I have like this letter, you write into me, I understand 100%. But when you said to me, you're not allowed to serve food at 11 o'clock, I'm not that much person smart to stop, not let the customer. Sometimes, my staff, they shy when from the customer come in. If he know he's our regular customer, he don't want to like tell him we sorry close regarding the license, we can't serve you. That's what we are Arabic. That's why we look after my neighbor. If he know 100% he's my neighbor, he will serve him. You understand? He forgot the law. He looked like our neighbor because he come in. He wanted chips. He give it to him.
No, I
understand if that is happening.
Thank you.
He try like to be nice person. That's what it is, but he don't know he breaking the law.
I understand that. Thank you very much.
Even me, I'm not trying to break in the law. I respect the law. What you want, I'm agreeing.
Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your honesty there. Mr. Rawlinson, James Rawlinson, can I just ask you one very short question, please, if you're there?
Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
When you made the test purchase at 10 minutes to midnight, do you by any chance recall when you actually entered the premises?
I would in my detailed notes, which I don't have in front of me right now, but the purchase was made at, it was 20 to midnight rather than 10 to.
So my
But I
question
would
really, had you been waiting in a queue for 40 minutes?
no, I had not. No, I sorry, I see the question. No, I would have entered. I haven't got the exact time in front of me, but it would have been somewhere in the region of about 11:30 when I entered, or 25 past, possibly at the absolute outside.
That's fine. Thank you very much. That does answer my question. Just one more question from Mr. Ahmed. And this is just for clarification. You said in your representation there that you would be happy, your words, you would be happy to stop doing takeaway at 12:30 and stop doing delivery at 10:30. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not gonna do delivery after 10:30. I know because there is too much noisy, because I used to work before with delivery. You know, the motorbike is sometimes, some of them very noisy. You know, when I went to Unacute Road, I used to switch off my motorbike like 2 minutes before to not make it noisy. It's gonna be like without an engine off, and the bike is keep like going, because I know too much noisy. Some people sleep. I understand that. I used to do it when I am with doing delivery.
Okay, thank you very much. And then just one final question for you. Ms. Dexter asked this question, so I'm going to ask it to you directly, which is how would you deal with customers coming in and queuing and waiting for their food? In other words, you know, would you seal off the booths? Would you have them standing? Would you allow them to sit down? So say 10 people come in at 10 to midnight. I'm not talking about the time being an issue, but you know, just the physical number of people. How would you deal with that many people? What would they be doing while they were waiting? And also, how long does it normally take to wait for you to process an order?
When like after 10:30, when I'm closing the table sitting, no one sitting. All they need to stand or stand. I have too much space. For example, it's kind of standing like 20 people inside.
Sure. But what I don't understand, and this is just because I'm afraid I'm sorry, I've never been into your restaurant. Are there barriers there? Are there signs there, or do you just say to people, "Don't sit down"?
At the moment, no sign. But anyone he want to take away, is automatically he's standing. You understand? He's not sitting down. I have like a forward chair behind the display. This one with the shelf for sitting. Some people they're waiting in this area until the order ready. They're using the phone. But normally at the moment, I'm not like McDonald's. You understand? So much busy. It's always like 2, 3. It's suddenly when the college they have a party, I have like 20 people. You know, I was like happy for my business is going ahead, and the people happy with the food. But always like you find 2, 3. It's not that much people. You understand? I don't have like the lunchtime like very busy.
Thank you. No, that's fine.
Or even nighttime.
No, that's fine. Just one final question, and I'll hand over. Which is, what time did you close last night?
Now?
No, last night.
Always like before 11 we closing completely.
Thank you.
But we stay 1 hour for clean just in the shop. But we are inside cleaning.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Everything you said. Thank you.
I have a sign also in the front the door and the front the service area to let the customer know we are the last order like 10:45. That's my last order. The temporary hour I write for them, and all the customer they know I'm applying for the license. And some people they told me if you want we can, you know, all my neighbor, you know, they're happy from me to 12:30. They're happy me to open. They're not asking me to open like till 2, 3 o'clock, because you know all when they come in from the station or from the pub, they come in 11:30, 12:30. That's the maximum. After you find the road is empty.
No, that's fine. Thank you. You've been very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's it for me.
any question, any more question, Councillor?
Yes, I have a few questions. If I could firstly ask Mr. Rehan if he understands why there are restrictions on licensing hours and premises hours.
Sorry, what the question?
What's your understanding of the reason that we have licensing hours and opening and closing hours?
I know because like from like 11 o'clock it start the people who's like making noisy. Some people they're too much drunk, and the drugs people start working in this time. That's why it's good also the business, but it's not the business making this a problem. You understand? I feel like the business like making the business like you make me like I'm a drugs dealer in the area. I'm making like too much a problem. Like I'm bringing something like unsafety or unbehavior to this area. All what I'm doing, I'm trying to make something good for the area. Anyone hungry, he have a restaurant to go get his food. I eat in sometime 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. If any restaurant, like I live in Pimlico, is all shop closed. Many times my children they ask me for food, is all shop is closed. I can't get any food in Victoria.
Thank you. I'm not sure that's really what I wanted to get an understanding of. Perhaps if I could ask, is it Mr. Atukus? Just Mr. Rian, what do you think of his objection that he made earlier, and about how his life and his family have been disrupted because of noise in the area, and some of which he attributes to your business? Sorry, that question was to Mr. Rehan.
Sorry, what the question you asked me?
Okay, I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
We heard earlier from Mr. Tukas about
Yeah.
how his home life and his family has been disrupted and intruded upon. What would you say to him about the noise and the problems that he's had to put up with?
As every person is a different. Some people, if you put a needle when he sleep, or just you walk very slow, he's gonna wake up. Some people they have deep sleep. Like me, I have deep sleep. The traffic doesn't affect me at all. Even I keep the window open or whatever is happen outside. I will, if I'm asleep, I can't hear anything. For him, I feel sorry, but I'm not telling him you have to change your place, but he have to do something for this noisy. But doesn't mean because he's living in the high street, we can't do nothing for him. But even my business, it doesn't affect him. It's not my business the problem for if he can't sleep or his neighbor if he making a delivery. Even his neighbor, he have a right to make an order. But I don't know, or we have to stop completely in the UK delivery after like 10:30. It's not just my restaurant. It's need completely to stop. If anyone, he need to go by self. Otherwise, we cannot stop. It's gonna reducing the petrol in the night time for the motorbike or the car making delivery. Now, spending too much petrol because the delivery. If anyone he want, or he eating what he have in a fridge, cheese, or he go take the bus or a taxi to make some food order for him, to bring some food.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rian. Mr. Otukis, you've heard from the premises owner. Has that changed your mind about the objections that you raised and your concerns?
I'm afraid it hasn't. The answers are very inconsistent and unclear. I'm still not clear actually what would be done and the actual hours. I'm very sorry. And yeah, I'm afraid I'm not clear on the answers. And all I want to say is people live very close. Not only, I'm not talking about myself. I spoke to my neighbors as well, and people actually live really close. And I haven't bought my property on the high street. My property is off the high street, but it's very close to the main road. But this is my objection. And I wouldn't object this particular business. I would object any business being that close to my property, wanting to extend the hours. So it's not a personal objection. It's an objection against extending hours for any business, because that will cause additional noise and nuisance for me and for my neighbors. And there are people who live even closer to the business. That's my objection.
Okay, thank you. Do you regard yourself as a light sleeper or somebody who's easily disturbed by a very small sound?
I wouldn't say so. But when you have three motorcycles parked literally outside your bedroom, waiting for food to be taken, and you can certainly hear that. Or you have people outside waiting for food. There might be a group of people. Someone goes inside, other people are outside. Some of them are on their phones and they are on loudspeakers. So it's just, I'm not saying there was no noise at the moment, but it will cause additional noise. And this is something I would like to make sure won't happen. Because I bought my property around 4 years ago. And I must say that area is getting noisier and noisier. And I think having businesses extending the hours, it will set a wrong trend overall. I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one final question, Mr. Ryan. In looking at the plan of your property on, I think it's page 23 of the paper, because I noticed the area outside your main front door and windows. Does that belong to your premises?
Sorry, could you say again what you want to?
The area outside of your shop windows.
Yeah.
Does that area belong to you?
The chair, no. I have 4 chairs outside, but no one sitting. 9 months now I am open. Maybe sometime people sitting, eating the rub and moving. Is it sometimes they sitting? Yeah. Not every day I have, always like empty.
Okay. So it's not there for extra capacity. It's there to.
It's all people take away more. I said more take away. Very little they sitting down, except like sometime like a Friday or a Saturday, people sitting inside more. Especially now it's cold, no one sitting outside. And 9 months I have no noisy. If anyone have any noisy, please provide me with any evidence. I agree with you to shut down even 10:30 the business if that's make noisy my business for the area.
Yeah. So people sitting out there would be consuming what they've bought on from your restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And are you aware of the licensing requirements for chairs and tables on the pavements?
Sorry, what you say again?
Are you aware of pavement licenses for that?
Yeah. That is like my private area.
So that belongs to the shop, does it?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you own the shop or lease the shop or rent it?
Lease.
You lease
I have a 12 years lease.
Yeah.
And all my neighbor, they don't have any problem. Even you can ask my neighbor upstairs. You can send someone from the council asking all my neighbor. You have 2 sides from my neighbor.
So
Because-
I didn't want to ask your neighbours.
Yeah.
I just wanted to find out from you about the outside of your shop,
Yeah,
because
it's my private area.
it's your private area. And
Yeah.
has that always been the case, or is this a new private area?
No, it's old one.
It's an old
It's
one.
old. Yeah, it's old one.
And do you have that in your lease? Does it say that area?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have the lease. I don't know what you call it. الخريطة تبع الأدرس يعني. I have it in the old shop, the plan, shop plan.
Okay.
Because I have I can do delivery from the area, the sitting area. There is like a door. I put my delivery also. Sometimes I use it.
So you're legally responsible for the conduct of the people who are in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the pavement. Okay, and
شوية ولا هي شو أحكي؟
No, that's okay.
If he says something you don't understand, explain to me.
Yes. Fine.
Yeah, okay.
so did you want me to explain the question?
Yeah, please explain the question. Because my daughter, she told me something.
So the area outside your shop,
Yeah,
the pavement area,
yeah,
you say that belongs to you,
yeah,
and that you manage that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So why are people sitting out there late at night or and making a noise?
No one sitting there.
Nobody's
No one
sitting
sitting there. No one sitting there.
Okay, thank you.
When I'm shutting the door, if some people play or some people come into this area, but I'm closing the business. You know, because there is my neighbor is open 24 hour. Not
Okay,
till 4 o'clock, 24 hour, my neighbor.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
No further questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one question to the licensing officer, and that is, could you, Adrian, tell me why the licensing authority did not object to this application?
Yes, Chair. Yeah, it was primarily because obviously we decided to issue warnings on the first two occasions, and in line with our enforcement policy, we normally issue 2 or 3 warnings depending on the severity of the of what's happened. If we had taken formal enforcement action, we may well have decided to make a representation to this application, but because we hadn't taken that formal action and it was just dealt with as a warning, that's why we didn't put in a representation on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for explaining. Yeah. Mr. Ahmed, I know my 2 colleagues have asked the same question over and over, and you keep coming up with the same answer. The question is, you are given time to open. You do not have to compare Marks and Spencer, other businesses. We are only talking about your own business, not about any other business. We are referring to yours, and the letter you are given, you shouldn't have opened beyond the time you are given. And for that, it's kind of, you don't understand what were being said to you, or you don't understand the letter being sent to you. So tell me again, why where do you go over the time that we are giving to you?
I am always downstairs. I'm closing every day the shop. Sometimes I'm downstairs all the time. If the staff, last time my daughter, she was with me, she called me, my daughter, from home, Daddy, close the door. I said, Daddy, okay, the door is closed. I'm downstairs, but I can't all the time watching the camera because I'm working. I'm using the knife in the kitchen. Not all the time I have to watch in the camera. Like now, every time I go upstairs before the time to close, to make sure they close even before, not 11 o'clock. I give you example for Marks Spencer because I have misunderstood. because the council is not very clear about the license. Since you let me make this application, it is mean you're given license. Or when if you have a something to agree for the license, you need to make a plan for the license. For anyone need to apply the license. If you have, that's for example 5 mark, if you have it in your shop, you can go ahead apply. If you don't have, like you're asking for window pizza window, why you make me applying for the license? You make me losing money, and now you tell me I'm gonna refuse your license. Why? Because a neighbor. From the beginning, why the council, they have a like something for all any businesses plan to get your license. You need to have all of this.
Mr. Ahmed, how many people work in your premises? How many workers do you have?
Three worker we are, because now I have low income. Still, I can't get the worker. That's why I'm working very hard now, and I didn't find the correct person, or I have like a staff, like rude staff. They not listening. You know, many of one they work with me like 1 week, 2 weeks maximum. I'm looking for the right person who to be nice with the people. I don't want someone like nervous from boss. If you tell him something, I want it like this, and you have to listen to follow your boss. And the staff, sometimes they not follow my law. That's why I stop him directly, even without notice. Last time in the Muslim Eid, I planning to I have two new staff. I want to give them like even extra wages, because you know for celebration for the Eid, you know, in that day I stopped them. I didn't give them extra money because they didn't listen to me.
I don't have any more questions. Anybody has councillors, any more questions from any of you? None. Okay, in that case, thank you, Ahmed. I'm going to ask for summing up. Okay. The licensing officer to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. I just wanted to draw your attention to page 15 of the report, that's got the plan of the premises, and then it's also got an overall plan of the area. And it does seem to say that the area directly outside the premises is actually the public highway, because you can see that the public highway is actually coloured in grey on that plan. But obviously, Mr. Rian has stated otherwise. There may be some correspondence, or there may be something else that obviously overrides that plan, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that. We don't have any details that shows that the outside area is owned privately. It just shows that it's the public highway. That's the information that we've got at the moment. And just in relation to Mr. Rian's point about him being asked to put in a license application, I think that was the case. I believe there was a conversation with enforcement officers with Mr. Rian, and it was explained, you know, obviously what we try and do is we try and get premises to come into compliance. We don't want to take enforcement action. So obviously we gave the steps that he would need to take, and that included making the application that you're considering this evening. But at no point did we guarantee what the outcome of that application would be. And obviously it's received objections, and there's enforcement history that's being considered and other things as well. But yes, I think we did give that advice to say that he should apply for a license if he wants to trade after 11 o'clock in the evening. And I think that's it. I don't have anything else at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you very much. May I have James, the noise and nuisance officer, if you have can you sum up, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. In summing up, I won't necessarily run over everything we've already kind of covered, or the information that I provided initially. It's just more a case of just looking at when we get to committee, and especially in a situation when we've recommended refuse on the basis of largely the time, but also the lack of information provided as well by the applicant. these committees are obviously a great opportunity for the applicant to present mitigation with regards to those comments that have been made. So an understanding of the noise issues, an understanding of how they may be better managed or mitigated in some way. I don't feel that we've received any additional information on that at all that would allow us to kind of provide any more thought on that. Having said that, I do always have sympathy with these kind of premises because the majority of the noise is generally largely out of their control, because we're talking about antisocial behaviour, external noise, people leaving their premises and hanging around, that sort of stuff. So it is largely out of their control, so it is very difficult. However, it's always good to kind of get a good understanding and appreciation from the applicant of the noise issues associated with late night opening. And again, I don't feel we've really had that appreciation and the impacts that it could have, which is largely why we kind of recommended that refusal in the first place. And the last quick point I wanted to just make was it's not very clear why the applicant has necessarily applied for a 2 o'clock, because by the sounds of it, he would be more than happy with an earlier closing time, which seems to suit. And if the application was for an earlier closing time, clearly you would have to reconsider any comments that we had made. But obviously we make comments on the basis of the fact that it's a 2 o'clock. And obviously, regardless of what the applicant proposes to do between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, the option is to be open until 2 o'clock, 7 days a week. And that's obviously why we have to consider that in that sense. So that's essentially it to close up, really.
Thank you, James. Now, can I have the objectors? Vitaly, please, can you sum up in 3 minutes? Please, thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm still not convinced that application should be granted, that they should be allowed to extend the working hours, because I haven't heard any reassurance about our concerns. And yes, I think that sums up everything. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Charlotte Dexter-Mora to sum up?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion on the part of the premises owner. And no matter what decision is taken tonight, he does make a very good shawarma, and I think I'll go up and see if he can take some time and I can sit down with the licensing policy and explain what it's all about. And maybe that would help him a bit to understand how licensing works within the community in London and in the UK. And I'd be very glad to take time to try to make some things clear, so that he continues to run a really good business and understands better what's needed from a council standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dexter. That's really good. Can I have Ahmed, if you can sum up for us why you want us to grant this license?
As I told you from the beginning, I'm not planning. I am family man. I have now 5 children. Is one in the West. We will be 6. And my business, because the low income is every day, like I was saying, like 5 minutes, because customer come in, I serve him, and I feel like little business, like from 11 o'clock, from 11 like till 11:30, 11:45, there is business. Sometimes I'm making good money, better mile, but than lunchtime. That's why I need to stay to make the business continue. Otherwise, I will close the business. If you don't help me with this business, I will close it. I don't want to work long hour. I'm not planning for this hour, because the business is pushing me to continue to stay, to work more. Now I am okay. My business is come up. I have a good income. Even you give me the license or you not give me the license, but also I'm looking for You know, my neighbor, what they ask is not that I'm not opening the business just to fill up money, you understand, and to make a problem to the area. I'm making business also to see the area what they want. If that is good for the area, you know, I will do it. If not, I will you know, avoid it. That is what my plan. Believe me, I swear I don't want it to open late. For me to close 9:30, 7:30 to go to stay with my children, you know, they're growing up without me. I have 1 year now, my child, he need me. You know, she wake up now at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, just to stay to play with me. She thinks it's a morning time to play. I'm not hungry for the money. I'm looking, is most important for, you know, the area, what the area need. And I have a healthy food, you understand? I'm not telling you to eat like 12 o'clock, 12:30, like a fried chicken. Is a heavy food. I have a light food, healthy food, all roast and grill. That's all what I'm doing. Sandwiches, very simple.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for summing up. Okay. I think everyone have summed up now. Deliberation. The committee will now retire to take its decision on a separate room, meeting room. You are welcome to remain at the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this might take some time. If you don't want to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council website tomorrow morning. Can I ask members to turn off their video and mute their microphone in Zoom and join in private meeting? Thank you, everybody. Oh, God. Is everybody in?
Present, Chair, noise and nuisance.
Okay, everybody's in. Okay. Edrin? Edrin?
Sorry,
No.
apologies, Chair. Yes, present. Thank you.
Okay, okay then. Okay, thank you. Just to note, the committee has decided the following. Rena Valley, located at 98A North End Road. The committee has considered an application for the grant of a premises license under the Licensing Act 2003 for provision of late night refreshment. The application, in summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all the individual circumstances of the case and the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, to object the application. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reason, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the magistrate court within 21 days from the date of notification of the full decision. And I would like to thank everyone for attending and or watching tonight. A summary decision will be published on the council website tomorrow. We will now soon be considering the second application for the agenda 6080. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Chair, you're just on mute. I think you're on mute at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Piers. I was suggesting, because we just come off the first meeting, can we just allow us another 10 minutes for us, some of us to freshen up or use the place?
Of course, yeah. No, of course. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. Okay. Hello. Hello, everybody. Yeah, okay. Everybody is in? Yeah. Greta?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Welcome to tonight's License Subcommittee meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on Council's YouTube channel. My name is Councillor Mercy Ume, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. If I lose connection and cannot reconnect, Councillor Paul Alexander will take over for me. I would like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking.
Excuse me, Chair, you turn on the camera, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. Please note that the chat function has been disabled. If parties wish to add additional information other than at the allocated time to speak, they must use the raise the hand function so they are not missed. I also ask the members to keep their questions and comments brief to the point. Now I move to item 1 on the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. None was received. Item 2, declaration of interest. Do members have any declaration of interest?
Chair.
No, okay. Item 3, 8060, 678 to 680 Fulham Road, Southwest 6, S5XSJA. I would like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourselves as I call on you. We should have with us Mr. Ashley Sanders, the applicant.
Present, yeah.
Okay. Pierce Warner, a solicitor for the applicant. Yes.
Good evening, Chair. I'm here.
Good evening. Thanks. Edrin Overton, Licensing Compliance Officer Enforcement.
Present.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Present. Thank you.
Present. Gaeta, this Council's Legal Officer.
Good evening, Chair. Present.
Good evening. Now we have the objectors. Mrs. Stewart, who is a co-chair for Fulham Town Ward, Police Stroke Committee Ward Panel. And present. We have present, thank you. And we have Charlotte Dexter Morrell, local resident. Charlotte.
Yes, present. And I'm also representing Martin Band, who did send his apologies and yielded his 5 minutes to me. Thank you.
Yes, I'll come to that. And okay, thank you for that. Procedure. Before we begin, I can confirm that in addition to the main agenda, 2 supplementary agenda containing additional information from the applicant and objector were also published and circulated to all parties on the 7th and 8th of November 2002, respectively. We will hear the presentation from the following. The licensing officer will introduce the application. The 2 objectors who have registered to speak together with two other people that they are going to be speaking on behalf, which is Sarah Shillingford and then Martin Band as well, the objectors. The two objectors have to speak. Finally, the applicant and his representative. Usually, each party will address the committee once for a maximum of 5 minutes. Following the presentation of all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or other person present at the hearing. No party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during hearing. Following the questioning, each party will be allowed 3 minutes to sum up. The committee will then retire for deliberation. Upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. Please keep your remarks as concise as possible. Presentation. Can I ask licensing officer Adrian to introduce the application?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, panel. So just by way of background, initially, I can confirm that on the 15th of August 2022, the company known as the Cochin Muggington Limited submitted an application for a new premises license in respect of the business known as 680, 678 to 680 Fulham Road, SW6 5SA. The application sought to allow the sale of alcohol, late night refreshment and regulated entertainment up to 11 p.m. Sunday to Wednesday, midnight on Thursday and 1 a.m. Friday and Saturday. The full details of the hours have been outlined in section 1.1 of the report, which I know you will have read. Following correspondence, excuse me, with the police licensing team during the consultation period, the terminal hour for licensable activities were reduced to 11 p.m. Sunday to Wednesday and midnight Thursday to Saturday. The applicant also agreed to a number of conditions suggested by the police. The applicant also agreed to conditions suggested by the council's noise and nuisance team, and as such, their representation has been withdrawn. These agreements and the associated conditions have been outlined in the report as well. Members will be aware that 4 representations from local residents and the ward panel chair of Fulham Town were also received during the consultation period. These representations are currently still outstanding, and no agreement has been reached with the applicant as far as I'm aware. If you could please also note that there has now been a supplementary agenda issued by the licensing authority, and this outlines some additional comments and suggested conditions provided by Ms Dexter, who has already submitted a valid representation during the consultation period. I don't have any other comments at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Now, can I hear from the objectors? That is Mrs. Stewart. And you're going to be speaking on behalf of me, Sarah. In that case, I'm going to allow you 10 minutes for 5 minutes for yourself and 5 minutes for Sarah Shillingford. Is that okay?
Thank you, Chair. I won't take the 10. I'm sure it's late and that everyone's already kind of eaten into their day a lot. So thank you for offering me this opportunity. First of all, just to put this in context, we're really pleased that the applicant is really trying to bring a kind of quality establishment, as far as we understand it, to Fulham Road. The previous kind of pub venue, the sort of Oktober Fest it was restaurant, drinking den, I'd have called it probably, was pretty sort of low quality, I would say. So, you know, something that is going to bring a quality venue to the area, all residents are fully supportive of. That being said, we are very conscious of the impact in a very mixed area with residential units right on top of the venues that are along this part of Fulham Road. We are very conscious of the impact of, in particular, opening hours, pavement activity, and noise on the residents who literally live right above these establishments. So our concerns are primarily to ensure that those residents are protected as far as possible, whilst obviously allowing and really pleased that a quality establishment is coming to the area. So in that, we, first of all, in terms of opening hours, we were very keen to ensure that the latest hours on the later days was midnight and was not allowed to go into the early hours of the morning. So I think that was a critical part of the agreement. In terms of noise, that noise, that the entertainment did not spill out into the very narrow pavement area outside the venue. A, because of residents, and B, because if it encourages people to congregate and gather outside the venue, there really isn't any room in that particular part of the street. We felt, partly because it is turned up elsewhere in the borough, that there should be a restriction or banning of any bottomless type occasion. So bottomless brunch, for example, is an example of something like that, where unlimited alcohol is served, way more than the kind of food that's offered with it. So our suggestion would be that type of activity not be part or not be allowed as part of the license. Again, because of residents and because of the very narrow street frontage, clearing of rubbish was a particular concern on behalf of the residents, to ensure that the frontage in front of the venue isn't just looked at kind of once a day, but is kept clean and tidy. And the other point, or the final point, was just in terms of any table service outside the premises. Again, because of the narrow nature of the street outside, that we are very cautious about how that outdoor service is managed and handled, because it's just an area that could really impede the kind of whole area of the street. So I think those were our concerns. Hopefully that's under 10 minutes. And we're just trying to find the right balance between, a great quality establishment that will bring value to the area, but also the value and livelihoods and lives of the residents who will literally be directly above this establishment in a very residential part of Fulham. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's exactly 4 minutes, actually. Thank you. Okay. We are going to have Charlotte Monry, and she's speaking as well on behalf of Martin. I will allow you 10 minutes. Yeah, Charlotte?
Yes, thank you. I won't take 10 minutes. First of all, all residents are very happy that somebody is investing in this property, so we thank you for that. I've been in contact with Piers Vanna, and he did suggest a few conditions, which I agree to, and I hope that the committee will accept those, and we, as residents, generally agree. So that's agenda item 7, page 3 on the supplementary agenda A. So I'll just go through that. Those are the two at the bottom of page 3, drawing up a dispersal policy, and also looking at the front of the premises. They were suggesting once a day. I think it will take time to realize you need to sweep more than once a day on Fulham Road. So maybe that could be conditioned just so that it's very clear. So just 3 other things that I point out. One, we've had a real problem with allegations, I use the word allegation, of spiking at various venues on Fulham Road, at the Redback, at the Chelsea Lodge, at other venues. I've spoken with the managers of these venues, and mainly they're all drawing up some type of formal or informal policy on spiking. And recently the licensing committee made as a condition for one of these venues that they had to put together a spiking policy. And the London government agency just came out with guidelines on that in September. The Institute of Licensing published those, made everybody aware of them. So it's a very good time to kind of embrace best practice and put a condition in that requires that this be put together so that, residents, everybody feels that the venue is doing everything that they can to have a policy in place that includes training and so on, specific to allegations of spiking, and in the moment doing the right things so that evidence is kept and so on. My second point is, so that's a request that we have. And we also are requesting in that request that safeguarding from the council be involved in that discussion, as well as someone like Adrian Overton from the licensing authority. And probably primarily, yes, the police, but it would be really good to have a small group of people. I mean, might even add a resident there so that we're all on the same page about that big concern. The second point, and I only have 2 more points, was about bottomless lunches, bottomless football dinners, brunches, all those kind of things. Again, this is kind of working ahead of the game and saying, we need conditions that make it very clear that this cannot be allowed. It's a problem in Fulham. It's growing, and somehow we need controls on the situation. You probably have all seen the review that came up with the Chelsea Lodge, and this was brought up. This new venue has the possibility of organizing events, ticketed events through third parties and so on. And this is when these kind of promotions are very attractive and they attract a certain type of clientele, and things really have to be under control. So I've stated there what we think, and we'd appreciate the committee considering that and putting something together on it. Again, the final point was about Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. We just feel that this area of Fulham Road closes at 2300, 2330, midnight. It doesn't go on to 1 o'clock and so on. So we feel that a closing time, which would mean drinking up from 11:30, quarter to 12, would be the most appropriate thing. Again, this whole discussion of late night economy, is Fulham Road becoming a 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning place? We hope not. I mean, Fulham is, someone said to me today, Fulham is 100% residential with a few main roads. And when you count in all the dogs and cats, it's 115% residential. So we'd appreciate you keeping that in mind and considering conditions as we've laid them out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte. And that was 6 minutes. So in that case, can I have the applicants, Ashley, Saunders, and Pierce? I'm going to allow you 12 minutes on total.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I'm going to allow you 12 minutes on total, okay, to speak. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be doing the addressing those points on behalf of the applicant, and Ashley's here obviously when we get to questions to assist the committee if there are any questions at that stage, and I will try and keep to the 12 minutes. Hopefully I should be under. The application's been outlined by Adrian, and obviously you will be fully aware that there's been agreement with the police, with Chris Cardwell in relation to conditions, and James Rawlinson from Environmental Protection. You'll find the application and those amended conditions. So this is what we're talking about now rather than the original application at pages 32 to 34 of the agenda. I did notice one error on those papers, which is the opening hours of the premises. On page 32, it says Monday to Wednesday and Sunday, 8 till 11 o'clock. That should be 8 till 23:30 hours. And you can see that that's what was agreed with the police at page 53 with the hours. And that makes sense because obviously the activities are there to stop at 11 o'clock and then 30 minutes drinking up time. So it was just a small error I noticed on the papers. There are a significant number of conditions here, and you'll find them actually in 3 different places. I won't go through them in detail. I may refer to them later on, but pages 32 to 34, you obviously have the conditions agreed with the police, with the Environmental Protection Officer. Pages 49 and 50 are conditions that were proposed by the applicant in their original application. And I would ask the committee, please, if they grant this application, to delete condition B from page 49, which is a CCTV condition, which obviously has been superseded by the CCTV condition offered by the police officer. But all those conditions stand as well. And then there are 2 conditions that were offered in the letter. One of them actually is it builds on a condition agreed with the police, condition 10, in relation to a good, robust dispersal policy, and there's a condition on cleaning the streets. So there's a bit of information there just in terms of where you'll find everything that's being applied for and the changes that have been made. We have taken into account, obviously, your policy. We were aware of your hours policy, and I'd note the following, that actually your licensing hours policy at pages 21 and 22 of the policy, we are actually under, in terms of 30 minutes under the hours stipulated in that policy, Monday to Wednesday and Friday and Saturday, albeit we're asking for 30 minutes over the policy on Thursdays and Sundays. But actually, in general terms, we come in, if you were to top them up, under the hours there. The policy is obviously only a guide. I'd also remind you of one of the foundational principles and key themes of your policy, theme 1 actually in the policy, which states the council is looking for sustainable, well-run licensed sector and seeks to encourage new investment. Now, this applicant is taking a currently closed building, which you've heard from the residents may not have been considered the most high-end establishment previously as Oktoberfest, and certainly if one looks at pictures of it on Google Maps, the kind of the exterior of it does look slightly incongruous, I think, if I can put it that way, compared to the rest of the street. I'm not sure it fits in. You'll be pleased to hear that will be going. Sorry, if the application is granted. They're investing close to £600,000 in the premises, and there is potential here to create up to about 40 new jobs if you're minded to grant this application. Now, we have reduced the hours from what we originally applied for, but I am going to ask you please to grant the hours that have been set out in the papers as I've just set them out on page 32. There are obviously some concerns by residents, and we fully listen to those, but Ashley and his team, Ashley's the director of the business, have looked very carefully at what they think they can operate successfully. These are trying times for operators, and I'm sure you're aware, with overheads, what we call in the industry headwinds, in relation to how premises operate, and it is important that their expertise in operating premises is taken into account, especially when we're looking at how it comes mostly within your policy guidelines as well. I'd also remind you that the guidance to the Licensing Act at paragraph 9.12, which is at page 70 as a reference for your legal officer in case you want to refer to it in deliberations, states that each responsible authority will be an expert in their respective field and the main source of advice in relation to particular licensing objective. And in this case, obviously, the main concerns that have been raised by residents are crime and disorder. And I'd remind you, obviously, we have the police agreement and public nuisance, and we have environmental protection in our agreement there. We submitted a letter as a supplementary agenda, which you'll find at pages 11 to 17. I won't go through all of that. You'll be pleased to hear, well, I'd go over time anyway. There are a few salient points that I think we need to draw on, which is this is an experienced operator. The fact that they operate premises outside of London is a bit of a red herring. Licensing objectives are the same, as I'm sure you're aware. The activities are the same. Proactive management is proactive management in a city, out of a city, in the premises. This application is for a wine bar with a food offer with breakfast, looking to open in spring of 2023. So I'm afraid we weren't able to provide menus, etc. at this stage, but I hope you take comfort from the significant investment in the kitchen that you'll see on the plans, and it gives a good indication of the intention. You'll also note from the plan, which you can find if you wish to refer to it, at page 52, that there's plenty of seating. There will be table service at peak times, but obviously we would like customers to be able to come to the bar. We'd like them to be able to speak to bartenders. We'd like them to ask questions, browse selections. We would expect most customers to be seated, but again, we don't want to restrict people from moving about or standing. This is a very grown-up offer, and we're looking for grown-up customers, candidly, if I can put it that way. But that does also mean we have to treat them as grown-ups as well. So we don't want to sort of dictate to them what they can and cannot do too much, unless there's a very good reason under the licensing objectives. And that comes to the point about things like irresponsible promotions that I'll deal with in a minute. Residents who are moving to the area, and we do know that there are flats going in above, obviously you'll be aware of the agent of change principle. People who are moving onto the Fulham Road, I would imagine, are moving there because it's a wonderful, vibrant part of town to live in. You know, having lived in London for 15 years myself, although I'm not there anymore, I do know the area, and it offers a lot to residents. The dispersal policy we have offered, and the cleaning policy, while obviously Ashley and his team would probably clean the streets more regularly, conditions aren't supposed to, you know, deal with every minutiae of running a business. I mean, quite clearly that's not the point. It's about setting standards here, and where those standards really need to be set is where they don't conflict with other matters, and to make sure that they're proportionate. And we've set out in the letter why we think some of the resident conditions that have been discussed are disproportionate, and I'm going to submit in my final submissions that the application is granted as amended before you, rather than with any extra conditions. I did note, and I just want to comment on the 3 conditions that Charlotte very kindly put forward in her supplemental bundle, which was served the day after the letter, which has the email from the 8th of November in it. There are 3 conditions there, and I just want to cover those because I think they can be dealt with quite simply. The safeguarding condition, well, you're seen in the operating schedule agreed with the police at condition 3 on page 33, there is a safeguarding condition that specifically covers drink spiking. So I think that's adequately covered. In relation to offers, bottomless brunches and things like that, there are some people who are irresponsible in those kind of promotions, there's no doubt about it, but I think there's 2 points we need to make here. One is there's already a mandatory condition on every license for the sale of alcohol that deals with irresponsible promotions. There is significant guidance that comes off the back of that mandatory condition that must be complied with. And indeed, obviously, it's illegal to serve people who are intoxicated. So the government have set the standards and what it means. And indeed, further to go further than those and to try and ban all kinds of promotions could have unintended consequences. And I'd submit, unless there is actually evidence at this premises that would require that kind of thing to happen, to do so at this stage would be disproportionate, given there is the mandatory condition. And you've heard what I've said about the closing hours. Whilst we respect, obviously, the residents' concerns, we fully anticipate that we'll be able to disperse our customers quickly and quietly. You'll have seen there's one of the conditions, for instance, that's been agreed with the police, that if they open past 11 o'clock, there must be a member of door staff, which means there will be someone there who can stand on the door and help with that dispersal. And I'd like to reassure the residents that obviously dialogue will continue with them throughout operations and opening, and look forward to inviting the residents in if you're minded to grant this application. But I will submit finally, your experts are the police and the environmental protection officers. We have agreed those conditions and those hours with them. I would submit that's the proportionate and appropriate response where you're minded to grant this license. And I'll stop there, I think, probably on 12-ish minutes, maybe.
You still have 1 minute. Okay, anyway, thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, can I ask the committee members have questions? Can I ask if committee members have questions to any party about application and issues that have been raised? So can I start? Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everybody for that. That's as usual. I come into these hearings with a lot of questions, and most of them have already been answered. So I will limit myself. I have one particular question, and this is to the applicant, and it's about the actual plan and the area of that's licensed. And it's sorry, I'm just trying to Trying to play with Acrobat here. And it's with regards to the external seating, which is proposed. I'm not entirely sure from the plan where the blue line ends, because as far as I'm aware, and perhaps licensing officers could comment on this, the pavement is publicly owned, and there's no license currently for external seating. So it's unclear from the plan whether the frontage of the building is going to be where it currently is, abutting the footpath, or whether it's going to be recessed. So if you could perhaps clarify that. So a question partly for licensing, partly also for the applicant. I don't know who wants to go first.
Ashley, I think that's probably.
Yeah. On the plan, it does show that you're quite right. It's the pavement that shows the license, but we won't have tables on the front. Effectively, the boarded area will be removed, and we'll have, subject to planning, open glazing. So that will open, but there will be no table or no seating on the pavement itself. It will all be within the building, in the curtilage of the building.
Right. Okay. So in theory, should we grant this application, the diagram that has been the plan that's been produced should actually be amended?
Well, there will still be that will be an area used for smoking as well. So on the basis if someone walks out with a drink,
not licensable as far as I'm aware.
Yes. Councillor Stanton, if I can just come in at that point, I think it was clear to mark out that there would be an area there where the public could go for smoking, but you're right, it isn't a licensable area, and you would have to apply for tables and chairs license outside, and given the width of the pavement, I don't think you'd have it. So I would imagine during the construction phase there will be some changes to the plans anyway, and if it was felt that was appropriate, we can just amend that so it effectively shows the blue line at the front of the premises building, and that's not a problem.
Excellent. That's good, because that was the one thing that was because I know the area relatively well, and as you say, the pavement there is somewhat narrow. Thank you. Right. So my next question is to Adrian, if I may. Which is the and again I'm fiddling around with 110. Well, I'm exaggerating. 100 PDFs open. Much of the time that the license for playing of live or recorded music, as far as I'm aware, there's no requirement for a license for these periods. Is that correct?
That's correct in terms of a deregulation. So where the sale of alcohol is in place from 8 o'clock in the morning, I think it's until 11 o'clock at night, there's no license required for certain regulated entertainment, including live music, recorded music, performance of dance. I'm just looking at all the types of regulated entertainment they've got. So yes, actually, so that it would only actually be needed past 11 o'clock, because they've got if you were to grant them the sale of alcohol on the premises, then for those times they would get that regulated entertainment, if you see what I mean.
Do indeed. Thank you very much. In which case, a question to Piers, if I may, which is, why have you included in the application?
I think there's a couple of reasons, and in real terms, Adrian's absolutely correct. In pure technical terms, and I hate to go into law, but I wrote the Live Music Act, so I have a bit of an interest in it being correct. The conditions are suspended, and the activity is permitted as it's a suspension of the need for the license. So it's not actually that you don't need a license, but that everything's suspended. So effectively, technically, you can have it on the license. It's just that any conditions that relate to it between 8 and 11 p.m. are suspended during that period. Now, I think the right thing to do, and as Ashley has done, is apply for the activity so that everyone can see what is being proposed, rather than effectively rely on the live music exemption and the recorded music exemption to effectively say, well, no one knows that we're going to do it, but we can do it anyway. So it's actually just being open and honest about what the intention is in terms of trading. But as you'll have seen in our letter, actually the activities are going to be very much fitting for the style and nature of the premises. This isn't going to be a disco type venue at all, albeit we would want to have some kind of DJ, some kind of recorded music, some kind of live music potentially to add to the ambience of the premises. So there are two different ways of doing it. My advice to clients, and actually Ashley submitted the application here, but my advice to clients is, if you intend to do these things, put them on the license so that people can see it rather than try and pretend you're not going to do it. If that makes sense.
Oh, that's fantastic, thank you. Right, very good answers to my main questions. My third question is more about the business model and relating to off sales. I know you've mentioned delivery in your letter, and you've applied for an off license. I'm just wondering, what is it you actually envisage doing? Will you be doing deliveries, or is the off license so people can take the half undrunk bottle of wine away with them, or buy a bottle to?
Should I take that, Piers? I think you've just touched on the council at the end. You know, it's the ability, and we asked the question when we did this. If people have a bottle of wine and it's not finished, and we can seal that bottle, they can take it away. It's not our intention to, you know, if we do deliveries and it's not actually in the business model at the moment, then yes, you know, there is the option to have alcohol, but that's not to a plan. It's more so they can take that alcohol, that wine that they haven't finished, they can take it off site with them when they finish their meal.
Fine, thank you very much. In which case, I have just for now just one final question. You've put in that you would do a litter sweep before you start trading in the morning. Now that's, I think I'm right in saying, on some days as late as 11 AM. Is that right? Maybe. My point is this: litter blows around, and to do a sweep at the beginning of a shift would mean that any litter that had been lying around from the end of a shift would be discarded and blown down the street. So given that you've put that in as a condition, I was wondering how you might feel about doing a sweep at the end of a shift.
And sorry, Piers, did you?
Actually, I was going to anticipate what you were going to say, but please go ahead. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's in our best interest. I mean, yeah, it's our reputation. It's about customer reviews. It's about making sure that we will be doing, you know, sweeps all day. You know, as soon as there's a bit of litter, that's how we operate our business. So rest assured, we'll be out there all the time picking up litter.
I think, Councillor, from a legal position, it goes back to that point of, are we trying to cover every single little tiny point, or actually give good operators their heads to run the businesses properly and to promote the licensing objectives? Otherwise, you end up with lots and lots and lots and lots of conditions on the license, each of which creates a criminal offence in its own right. So if you say you must do X at this time, or you must do it at the end of all trading or at the start of trading, if you happen to do it just before the end of trading, or you do it within an hour of the start because there is no litter out there, technically you end up breaching conditions where you don't need to. So it's more about setting a standard, and we felt that was the appropriate level, albeit, as you've heard, there is no intention of letting litter sweep all around the place in any event.
Like I just say, I didn't anticipate that you would allow that to happen. It was merely that you've offered a condition, and since you've offered a condition which seems somewhat illogical, I just wondered whether you might be happy with a more logical version of it.
Councillor, if you have a proposed wording, more than happy to sort of listen.
So just to be clear, my point was this, is that sweeping at the beginning of the day, at which time you have created no litter, is not as logical. Potentially created litter, I'm not suggesting your clients would create litter, but should they, in some instances, create litter, sweeping some 8 to 12 hours after they have left is not as logical as doing it when they've done it.
I now understand what you mean. The reason for doing it in the morning is actually we anticipated the litter being from other people dropping litter overnight. Well, so actually we would clean our own premises anyway, but to clear whatever detritus was left overnight would be That was the point of that condition, because obviously when we're open, we're going to keep it clear anyway, because our customers are not going to want to come in if it's all mucky and horrible, and it's in our interest to do so. So that was the logic behind it, albeit I see your logic is either works, as they say logically, I think.
Well, that brings us to a logical end to my questions then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Alexander, do you have any question?
Yes, I do. And I would start, I suspect the answers have already been kind of given, but not necessarily in the format that I was looking for, about the pavement and the use of the pavement outside. And if I start with local resident Georgie Stewart's observations about how the area would be affected by, and particularly in management. And I would say at this point that I've been a patron of all the establishments in and around this area for a very long time, and it's a nice area. And it did get a bit, the Oktoberfest did get a bit Dickensian, sort of Fagin-esque looking characters hanging around outside, which might have been just because they're the poor people who happen to smoke, but it's not a nice atmosphere. And I could understand any woman actually not wanting to walk along there as a consequence of that. And just before I go back to that particular issue, which I do feel strongly about, I would just go, when Ashley was just explaining really probably the answer to my question, which was about the curtilage of the building. Now, I know from long memory, and from very long memory, this is one big plot, one big freeholder plot, because I think my dad knew somebody who was connected with the freeholder when I was a lad of the 123 shop, which is I think it's 680, 678, and 676. If I've forgive me if I got the numbers not quite right. So I assume you guys are not the freeholders or connected with the freehold, but you have leases to use that land and to do the buildings, which is not really a licensing question, and hopefully you'll understand my reason for asking it, because it's really to do with the land that you can manage, and I don't think you can manage the public highway, and it's very narrow there. It's on zigzag lines, which I think there's quite a bit of tolerance over the, you've got, I think there's a couple of Drayman's beer barrel drops in the pavement, but there are no rights over the pavement. I think number 680 has got a basement that extends slightly out under the pavement, but since the was it the GLC Act? Sorry, I'm not a lawyer, but it was the GLC Act in the 60s that made all the pavements public in London. So I'm a bit concerned to see, and it's probably because it wasn't a sketch; it was an architect's drawing, to show that this extension appeared to be what you've clarified was blue lined as the pavement. Now, normally again, I'm not a legal property person, and I'm hoping Piers Warne can probably extend a little bit of expertise into this, but normally a blue line on a land registry plan of land indicates underneath the pavement, and the red indicates the surface. Now, what seems to happen here is that the plan is indicating that there's a basement under the pavement, which there isn't, or there shouldn't be, or it needs regularising, whatever the position is there. But I can see absolutely no reason to have an area on the outside there, which you kind of said it is. Now, having taken you right the way around the houses, and please, you're very welcome to come back. Back to Georgia Stewart's point is, we don't want people hanging around outside, and I do feel sorry for smokers. I packed up a long time ago, but it's because you get smokers and then you get people, the whole lurking and loitering content is really, really unpleasant. It's no good for your business. And if you can manage that aspect out of it, because I'm sure your customers are not necessarily the same people concerned, but I would imagine it's in everybody's interest to get this matter really dealt with and management understood. And the idea of having big burly security, I think you mentioned about having, I think, was it you, Piers, who mentioned about having security guards on the door and stuff?
It's the condition that was agreed, yeah.
It just, again, that's probably something you don't want, because it actually puts people off, and it certainly it links itself with some less salubrious premises, licensed premises in the borough. So it would be off-putting for your customers as well as for people walking up and down the pavement.
If I may, Councillor, can I address some of those points just while they're in my head?
Please understand I'm sorry to be so general with it, but it's just to be clear.
I know, and there's some very good points, and Ashley, then at the end I might just invite you to clear up whether you hold a lease or not. But if I sort of deal with the points in the round first, you're absolutely right. The conventions on land registry plans are very different to licensing plans, and blue lines tend to show under pavements. I've had a look at the externals here outside of Oktoberfest, and Google Maps is a wonderful thing, because I don't have to leave my home to do it. There is the Drayman's drops, and there is also some light wells that you can see on the pavement as well. It could be that that's adopted highway. It could be actually that's part of the demise of the premises, but it's irrelevant to the licensing application which one of those it is, because actually the intention, as Ashley has said and I've said, is not to put tables and chairs out there anyway. And so when we come to do the final tidying up of the plan, we'll just simply remove that area from the frontage anyway. So that will deal with it, if you like, in licensing terms. In terms of the smoking, there is obviously different premises have different customers and different styles of customers give off different impressions, it has to be said. And I don't want to comment on Oktoberfest. They were never one of my clients, but I don't like to, rubbish people who don't have a right to respond because I've seen it from the other side. But whatever their customer base was, that isn't who this is going to be. The issue about managing smokers outside is partly about how you manage the premises inside, actually, and what people expect and expectations. I think conditions like the one that was offered by the residents, the 5+5 condition, for only 5 smokers outside, only for 5 minutes, that is pretty much impossible to manage as a condition without breaching it, without someone permanently outside. Now, that is either a member of door staff, which, as you say, during normal hours you don't want to have outside because it just doesn't look right, or a member of staff outside, which is a cost that is unnecessary. So the reality is one has to allow one's customers to be managed, and if necessary, and there are smokers outside, and we wouldn't expect them to be in significant numbers, but what we wouldn't want to do is say, well, we'll limit it to 5 smokers. Because if you had, let's say, 3 people coming down the road who were going to come into the premises, and you had 5 smokers outside, 2 of them had cigarettes in their hands, you've suddenly got 7 smokers outside your premises, and you're technically in breach of the condition. I would suggest that, and submit in legal terms, those kind of conditions are more important if an issue is identified. And then you can limit it if it causes problems. But in this case, we think actually it's probably not necessary to do something of that nature. The door staff, just very quickly on that point, as it was mentioned, that was a condition agreed with the police, that only if they're going to open after 11 o'clock must they have a member of door staff. So that's effectively agreed with the police, and hopefully addresses some of the residents' concerns about people coming from other premises late at night and trying to get in. So I think that's why that was agreed. But in general terms, this premises we wouldn't ever think would need door staff for a security activity point of view. In terms of managing customers, we think they will be very well managed by the staff. There'll be plenty of staff. There is going to be table service at key times. So there'll be lots of people keeping an eye on outside as well. So we don't think any further conditions would be necessary, if I'm honest on that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does, but I will in a minute defer to Georgie just to see what she thinks about the answer and any comments she has. Now, going back to the curtilage of the property, it's a very complicated plot of land, and presumably the leases fit in here. And again, the architect's drawing is showing really what their activity is going to be, rather than what the if anybody needs it, rather than what the property boundaries are and could be. And again, to sort of to get back to basics about what this question's about, is these are older buildings, and they were never built with noise as a consideration about how you block it and how you absorb it, and so the architect's plan at the back is quite inaccurate in terms of the actual plot of the land and where the leases would actually sit on that land. So there's going to be other residents at the back who might well be affected by noise and any nuisance areas or that at the back. And we want to just clarify what you may have in mind at the back, just so that we know, so that if, for example, you manage to conceive a little garden area or something else, then it'd be quite normal for a licensing committee to consider conditions about the garden must close at 10 or whatever, that kind of stuff. But it's this general idea of the noise and the residents at the back who, from your application, and I'm sure it's not intentional, and please don't assume it is, but as a local resident, unless you were really in the know, you wouldn't necessarily get an understanding of where the limits of the property, of the premises are, against where your homes are and where you might be affected.
I simply, as we've mentioned, the pavement doesn't need to be licensed. That blue line will be brought back in line with the building, the front of the building. The lease, which is yet to be signed, because obviously the license is the signing the lease is dependent on getting a premise license. There is no part of the conditions of the lease. There's no access to the back. There's no garden area. That will just be a bin area for one bin, and that's it.
Yeah, it's not to limit you at this thing. It's really to make sure that we've considered this, that we don't all trip ourselves up at a later date if you want to apply for something or that.
I understand the lease that we will sign. If when we sign it, it doesn't give us access to the back. There's no garden area. There's nothing that can be licensed out there.
Okay, thank you very much for clearing that up, and I hope you'll understand why I asked.
Yes.
And if I could now just finally go to Georgie, who knows the area, and if she could just tell me what she thinks about the arrangements and how the management of people on the public highway will be, and how female members of my family might feel comfortable walking up and down there.
Thanks for asking me. It is a difficult one, isn't it? I hear the difficulties from a legal perspective of, constantly having to count, how many people are out there. And if you happen to have one more person, sort of turn up and join the throng, then you're in breach. So I understand the concern from a legal perspective. All I would say is that pavement is really, really thin. I mean, I walk along there 4 times a day with my small Cocker Spaniel, and there's barely room, and I'm quite short and relatively slight myself. And there's barely room for me and the dog, to walk along. If someone's coming the other way, someone has to give way. There's not even room for 2 people along the pavement. So if you were to get, the reason we suggested 5 + 5 is that, honestly, I don't know how you would manage a situation if there were, if there were 10 people out there. You simply wouldn't be able to use that pavement, and it would be it would feel like a crowd just because the pavement area is so small. So I'm probably not the right person to answer, because I can't think of a clever solution. because I understand the legal issue, but at the same time, if you had a group of 20 people outside the door of the establishment, you would have a problem because the pavement would be completely unusable and the noise would be very obvious for any residents around. So yeah, I don't really know how, if there are any other examples of other establishments that have a way around it. It is a particularly unique area, I think, because the pavement, the Brown Cow, for example, which is obviously a couple of doors up, but that has a side, has an entrance that comes out on Ross Trevor, which is going up the side. So in a way, it's a bit easier even in that area because there can be a couple of people up the side. They're not all in the front. This entrance will all be in the front of the road, and therefore there's just much less space. So I don't think there's an easy answer other than providing some kind of limit for the people that should be outside at any one time.
Georgie,
Councillor, may I come back on
very
that?
much? And if I'll sort of, you can't sort of answer that directly, but you could answer it to me if you want to, Piers, and I'd be appreciate it if you would. And hopefully, again, you can see we're just concerned about this. We want you to encourage good businesses, but we don't want residents to pay the price from their quality of life.
Of course, but there's a couple of facts we can't steer clear of, and your legal advisor will obviously advise you on this. One is we have to look at what the legal requirements are under the Licensing Act and the guidance and policy. So that's the first point, is how far do we stray away from the legals into supposition about what may or may not happen. If I can give you some comfort and the residents some comfort, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I used to do this under the old Act. So, I've seen the transition to the new Act. And one of the good things about the new Act is that residents get to voice their concerns and you get to hear them and we get to hear them, and that's fantastic. But there are a significant number of city centre premises that are on pavements as narrow, or if not narrower than this one around the country. And it's something I've seen in various places up and down the country. And my urging is this: if you try and condition things too tightly, actually what you do is lose sight of what really needs to happen here, which is proactive management. So for instance, one person being, I don't like the word, but let's use it, leery on the pavement, or leery even, upsetting Georgie and her little dog as they walk past, is more offensive than 6 or 7 people who are politely standing back and allowing people to go past. It's about A, the people you attract, and B, how you manage them properly. Now, it's better to have a management policy from Ashley and his team to ensure that there is a constant and decent supervision of that outside area, but that doesn't mean putting someone on the door and managing them to make sure there's 5 and no more than 5 people. That is about the proper management of customers to make sure they behave properly and in a proper manner. So what I'm saying is, actually, you're right, Georgie, there is no simple, easy panacea to this question. But the truth of the matter is the Licensing Act was designed, and it's mentioned in your policy actually, to be light touch for good operators. And then if there's a problem, you can review the license and you can impose much more strict and strident conditions upon it. But to impose a condition saying, right, you must only have 5 people outside and they must only be out there for 5 minutes, compels a member of staff to be outside at all times, and in fact might even compel them to be SIA badged, because they might be undertaking security activities if they're demanding that they then go inside, or they then move off, or you can't go in, or you can't come out. That is a very significant cost to a business, which obviously you are allowed to take into account as well. So my urging at the moment is trust in the business, as it were, to do the right thing with the right customers. And if there is an issue, then you can look at being robust about it. And obviously that's where licensing officers and complaints and things like that work to help. But we don't envisage, and Ashley doesn't envisage, the fact that there is a narrow pavement there to in and of itself be an issue. We think we can manage our customers perfectly well outside there without having to impose arbitrary limits.
Thank you very much, Piers. That's very helpful. And you'll appreciate that this has really occurred because of what's happened in the past there, and also your architect's use of a blue biro on a plan, and I'm sure you can you can liaise with them.
We will have that plan corrected before the premises opens, but please take this as an assurance in a public forum that there is no intention to put tables and chairs out the front, or indeed use it as a, you know, an area, a customer area beyond people going out for a cigarette.
Thank you very much. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any more questions, councillors? Well, I just have just one question, and it's just to Piers or to Ashley. You mentioned about dispersal policy. Did you submit any of that to the licensing authority?
We haven't. Sorry, Chair. I was going to say we haven't submitted anything yet because we're nowhere near at the stage of actually developing all the policies. But as you'll have seen, what we did was we took the police condition, we listened to what the residents said, we've expanded upon the dispersal policy so it covers people leaving quickly and quietly, etc. And that will be ready and in place before opening, which, as I say, is next year, subject to this being granted and obviously then the lease being signed. So we would anticipate that being in place well before opening in, I think it was April, wasn't it, Ashley, we were discussing as the plan?
Yes, that's correct. End of April, beginning of May.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I haven't got any other questions. Now I have to go to summing up. Please, can the parties sum up briefly as possible in the following order? The licensing officer, please, can you sum up for 3 minutes?
I don't have anything to add, actually, Chair. No, I think all the points have been covered. Nothing else from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edwin. And can I have Mrs. Stewart to sum up 3 minutes? Have you?
Crikey. I think you've heard our concerns as well. It's all about impact on residents and just ensuring that, in particular, opening times and the egress outside is managed in a sensible manner with view to the residents' lives outside their entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Please, can I have Charlotte Dexter, please, to sum up 3 minutes?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to just concentrate on the phrase that was used, table service at key times, and which hasn't been really explained, but it does mean that at certain times there won't be table service, which might mean that at certain times there won't be food. And so I'd just like to concentrate again on these promotions, the offering of alcohol at brunches, at lunches, at birthday parties, and so on. This is a big problem in Fulham, and it's becoming a bigger problem, and that's why residents are bringing it up. And whether a condition makes you liable to things or not, I mean, we need something of an assurance that these types of events won't be happening at this venue. That's very important because it's out of control in several places. And although you say we can come and review the licenses don't get reviewed. It's very, very rare that they're reviewed. It takes a huge amount of effort, resource, evidence, happens every few years. And you really need a shooting or an underage person being caught drinking or spiking, which was recently the case. So we can't come back in 6 months and say, hey, you're doing this and it's crazy outside. We can't do that. It doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't work that way in Hammersmith and Fulham at the moment. So we see this is our chance to try to get some things defined. And that's why we've tried to work with you up front. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dexter. Can I ask Ashley or his solicitor to summarize just 3 minutes, please?
Of course, and I will keep it to the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Let's just start with your policy at page 13. The licensing authority will seek to impose conditions appropriate to promote the licensing objectives for those premises which present the lowest risk to the public safety and other licensing objectives. The licensing authority will adopt a light touch approach to regulation. Now, in this case, with the police, licensing authority and EHO being satisfied with the conditions that have been proposed in the amendment in ours, I'm going to submit that actually we are in that lowest risk category. Otherwise, you would see your officers here. Proportionality is a key word in any determination or any licensing matter in the council. You may be aware of the phrase Wensbury reasonableness in decision making, which goes to appeals. The guidance makes it very clear at paragraph 10.10, the licensing authorities and other responsible authorities should be alive to the indirect costs that can arise because of conditions. And you are allowed to take into account that those costs can actually cause issues in businesses actually surviving. A member of door staff for 4 hours on a Friday and Saturday night for a year costs somewhere in the region of £16,000 to £20,000. So if you imagine that you put a condition on the license that unintentionally or not requires a member of door staff to supervise people outside, just because of the nature of the way the condition is worded, that is a significant business cost that isn't actually proportionate or necessary here. Conditions are not supposed to cover every eventuality, and the Institute of Licensing and the Local Government Association have both released guidance to that effect that say that conditions must be proportionate, they must be achievable, and they shouldn't go any further than that. And this is where we come to a couple of the points that have been made. The hours, we submit that the hours as revised in the application, as I referred to earlier, are perfectly appropriate and proportionate here. It's all about managing those customers as they leave. Bottomless brunches, the condition that was proposed is actually goes significantly further than the mandatory condition on the premises, on all premises licenses, to do with irresponsible promotions. And as I mentioned earlier, the guidance that goes with it. Those laws are in place already, and whilst for residents it might feel difficult to review a premises license, I can tell you police officers, if they're having to deal with heavily intoxicated people coming out of premises, stumbling out of premises, having been at bottomless brunches because they're not properly managed, they will bring reviews for that kind of thing. So I'd urge you not to impose any further condition where there is a mandatory condition and the guidance in place already. So my summary is this: I'm going to ask you to grant the license as set out on page 32 with the amendment to the opening hours. So it says 23:30 from Monday to Wednesday and Sunday. The conditions on those.
I have to stop you. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, and you know the rest of the conditions anyway, so you know what.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Okay. The committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate meeting room. You are welcome to remain in the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this might take some time. If you don't want to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow. Can I ask members to turn off their video and mute their microphone or Zoom and join in the private meeting? Thank you everyone for waiting for that long. We'll be back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry. Hello, everyone. Is everyone in? I suppose so.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. The committee has considered an application for the new premises license under Licensing Act 2003. The application, in summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all the individual circumstances of the case and the promotion of the 4 licensing activity, to 1, to grant the application by imposing the licensable hours proposed by the police and agreed by the applicant. 2, opening hours of the premises are as follows: Sunday to Wednesday, 8 o'clock to 11:30. Thursdays to Saturday, 8 o'clock to 12:30 p.m. To impose condition proposed by the police and agreed by applicant as amended by the committee. 4, to impose conditions proposed by the Noise and Nuisance Department and agreed by the applicant. 5, to impose conditions proposed by the applicant in operating schedule and supplementary agenda as amended by the committee. 6, the applicant shall submit within 14 days to licensing authority an amendment plan excluding the public highway from the premises license. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons and full text of the conditions added to the license, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If any parties is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the magistrate court within 21 days from the date of notification of full decision. I would like to thank everyone for attending or watching tonight's meeting. A summary decision will be published on our website tomorrow. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you and good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.